responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon Howse.
All right, welcome. Glad you're with us today. We are going to be joined by Patrick Wood. He's written a brand new book that, frankly, all of you should read. I get nothing for saying that other than an informed and educated audience. It's called The Final Betrayal. Now, I've made reference to it, but I was up till pretty late last night reading this book, highlighting this book. This is a broadcast for people that want the truth. If you want someone to do the whole left, right, all the Democrats are bad, Republicans are wonderful, then this is not your program. We don't do that. We're about truth. We're not partisan in that way. If you want someone that will give you unicorns and rainbows and a bunch of hopium and tell you how their posse is going to take over and restore liberty and freedom and sell you hopium because they know that a percentage of the population just craves that, lie to us and tell us how everything's going to be great, then this program's not for you. We're not a program that's looking to depress people. We're not looking to give you bad news because we can actually put all of this in the context of the Bible. And that's where we're looking for hope, the blessed hope, the return of the Lord. And the more I read these things, the more I say, even so, Lord Jesus, quickly come, and night shall be no more. I also realize that what I'm reading in this book is laying the foundation for Bible prophecy to be fulfilled, which makes me understand God is in control. He knows the beginning from the end. He is the Alpha and the Omega. And he has told us in his word what's going to happen if we'll study it. That's why we went through the book of Revelation, verse by verse, for a year and a half, which, by the way, I'm working on the commentary and study guide for that. Okay, I thought that was going to be like 200 pages. I don't know why. I thought, I don't know, where did that come from originally? Maybe I was confusing it with siege or sabotage or something. But I've been going through that. I get from my editor, I get these in chapters, okay? In chapters. And so I go through them in chapters and reread, make sure everything's right, anything I want to add, something I said, I didn't say it the right way, whatever. I'll go through it. Turns out this is probably going to be like 1,000 pages. We're going to have to probably release it in 2 volumes. But this is why we did this study of the book of Revelation. This is why I'm going to do the study, Lord willing, on the book of Daniel when I finish my series on why I'm a Christian Zionist, which, by the way, is getting huge numbers, big numbers. By the way, some of our clips over the weekend did 2 million views. Just over the weekend, 2 million views. We don't say that to brag or boast other than to tell you there is a hunger. There is a hunger for the truth, for those who can handle the truth. But when I read a book like this, or when we talk about what we're going to talk about today, I'm not in despair. Am I concerned? Yeah, I'm very concerned because I think we are being betrayed. I think Donald Trump has been captured. I think his administration has been captured. And you can blame Susie Wiles, his chief of staff. You can blame a lot of people. But at the end of the day, the buck stops on his desk, right? And I personally don't trust JD Vance whatsoever. I don't trust JD Vance whatsoever. Now, there's a lot of controversy because apparently he is out there defending Tucker Carlson's son who works for him, which we know because we were emailing Buckley Carlson. And I said, is that Tucker's kid? That was back in the spring, back in February and March and April, saying, hey, we're coming to D.C. We'd love to do an interview. But apparently the vice president doesn't have the courage to do an interview with someone like ourselves because I think they watch enough of our stuff to know this guy isn't a political hack. He would ask way too many intrusive questions. And so I don't think he has the courage to come on my program. I don't think JD Vance has a chance at being president unless they want to rig it. That's my opinion. But I personally could never vote for a JD Vance, ever. But he seems to be more interested in defending Tucker Carlson's kid than he does his own wife. That's my opinion. But the reality is people are simply saying, if Tucker's brother, who is tweeting over the weekend, believes this, that's what we're told, that was Tucker's brother. I don't know. I wasn't there when the tweet was being formed. I would know Tucker's brother if he walked by me. But we're told that was Tucker's brother, if that's the case. People are saying, well, if Tucker believes this and Tucker's brother believes this way, what does JD Vance, what does Tucker's son believe, who reportedly works for the vice president? Well, apparently that didn't sit well with the VP. He's having a fit that someone would ask a question. And he's out there on social media having a meltdown. Because someone simply wants to say, well, we like to kind of know what your staff around you believes when it comes to Nick Fuentes and these other people. So I don't trust JD Vance. And after staying up late last night reading this book, The Final Betrayal, I'm starting to wonder, I know this is kind of hard to hear, but is the country in just as much danger as it would have been under a Kamala Harris? One group are absolute Marxist. The other group are technocrats who openly are vocal critics of the idea of a constitutional republic. They can call it democracy. I'm not for democracy. That's the rule of the 51%. We're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. But you got guys like Peter Thiel who are vocal critics of so-called, quote, democracy. They want to replace us basically with a monarchy. They want to fire all the federal employees. I'm like, well, I'm not so sure that's a bad idea. But what are they going to replace them with? They want to replace them with computers and algorithms and AI. And what they want to put us into 15-minute cities, from what I'm reading, and control us through an algorithm that can punish you if you don't comply. I think I would rather deal with the bureaucrats. Because at least those guys sometimes, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing and they can't get on the same page. And maybe that's what saved us as a country, that you have hapless bureaucrats shuffling paper that can't get on the same page. Kind of like the Republican Party, right? I mean, that's the Republican Party. It's the Three Stooges. It's the Keystone Cops. But if you have a computer system that is able to monitor every move, open a file on every American, and then a camera so that we're all on our best behavior, says Larry Ellison. This is going to be brought to you by Donald Trump. This is the future. Again, Kamala Harris, Biden was bringing us Marxism. These guys are bringing us technocracy, which is at some level worse. Because their Marxism, again, requires bureaucrats shuffling paper. Not a good thing. But this computer system, you're not going to be able to get around it. You're not going to be able to plead with it. You could go to a bureaucrat and say, look, this is not right. And you can find compassion, perhaps, some sensitivity with a bureaucrat. Have any of you ever been audited? I have. I actually found the auditor, this was the one I've dealt with in 96, to be extremely reasonable. To the point was like, you know what? You're so organized. In fact, she said, you're more organized than anyone I've ever audited in my 18 years. I was the first person she ever saw bring a laptop computer to an audit back in 96. She said, no one's ever brought a laptop and opened up QuickBooks, Quicken, in my office. Wow, that's a first. Impressive. We were going to audit you for the next year, but there's no reason. You're so organized. You gave us the answers we needed. I'm closing the file. Have a nice day. We were in and out in 2 hours. I've dealt with auditors at the state level here in my state of Tennessee. I had a conversation recently with one of them asking for some information. I asked my tax attorney, my accountant. We said, okay, here's what you're looking for. Oh, okay, we're all on the same page now. Just as nice as can be. I've never had a bad experience with anybody at the state level. Never. To the contrary, they're like good old boys when you talk to them. I mean, they're like the kind of people you'd probably want to go hunting with, you know? They're literally nice people. Everyone I've ever dealt with. But try getting that kind of service, public service, if you will, out of a algorithm that has been designed to punish you when you don't agree with the programs and the parameters that have been put in place. Now, you tell me which is worse, Marxism with bureaucrats or technocracy with computers that won't relent? That's you can disagree, but that's a legitimate question, isn't it? Joining me now is Patrick Wood. Patrick, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
What do you make of my opening monologue?
Spot on. Yep. That's all I can say. You're spot on. You really get it. And so many people are, well, some people don't get it. They probably will never get it. But a lot of people are sensing there's something really, really different this time around. And they're opening their eyes to seek other explanations, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When did you realize you have a problem with this JD Vance character? And by the way, how many times has he changed his name? Isn't that a legitimate question?
It probably is. Yeah, I don't know. I think two times at this point. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. I've never changed my name.
No, me neither.
I wouldn't think of doing that.
No.
What's the point? Yeah.
And now, as we know, he's surrounded by guys like Thiel, and we've touched on this, but I want to move quickly because there's so much in this book. You write on page 11 of your book, Final Betrayal, Peter Thiel embodies the dark enlightenments. That's where, remember what Elon was calling it, dark enlightenment, wearing his hat. Yes. Peter Thiel embodies the dark enlightenments designed for populist governance, viewing it as incompatible with true progress and freedom. Here's what he said in 2009, quote, "I must confess that over the last 2 decades, I have changed radically on the question of how to achieve these goals. Most importantly, I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible. By tracing out the development of my thinking, I hope to frame some of the challenges faced by all classical liberals today," end quote. What does he mean by that?
Who knows? You know, there was a time when I considered myself a classical liberal. That's not a slur necessarily, but a classical liberal is somebody that believed in the Constitution in the first place. And so this guy does not believe in the Constitution at all. So his statements are contradictory. Having said that, okay, well, I think what he's expressing here, his disdain for anything relating to the way things are in America. He's in other words, he's anti-American, or maybe we should say he's anti-Americana. You
write, his protege, Vice President JD Vance, whom Thiel employed at Mithril Capital and bankrolled with over $15 million for his 2022 Senate campaign, serves as direct conduit for Thiel's anti-democratic vision into the White House. Let's talk about that when we come back. So Really, Peter Thiel, I guess, made JD Vance a U.S. Senator. And then, of course, I have to ask, was it Don Jr. and Tucker Carlson that then went and begged President Trump to pick a JD Vance? We'll be right back with more. The book, The Final Betrayal. Don't go away.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home. Went to bed. All right, welcome back. Now, please understand, I'm not saying that I don't appreciate some of the things that Trump administration is doing or has done. What I'm trying to tell you is we do what here, folks? What do I often say? We who predict or describe trends. And what I'm telling you is like I did with the Patriot Act after 9/11 when we got a lot of criticism. You're not a patriot. You must be a communist. You're not for the Patriot Act. And we're like, can we tell you where we think this will go? And we were 100% right. It's the same way. Mark it down, grab this program, should the Lord not return soon, and in the next 5 years, 10 years, you're going to say, well, Brannon Howse and Patrick Wood, they sure nailed it there on that day, Tuesday, November 18th, 2025. They told us what was coming, and we were all so busy thinking we were in the golden age and making America great again, we didn't realize that this was a gigantic sales job on the American people. And now, 5 years later, 10 years later, whatever it might be, we now realize we are living in a brave new world, a digital dystopian society. 15-minute cities. But then it's going to be too late. So the naysayers, the critics, that's fine. But when you are living in a technocratic state that has no liberty, no freedom, no free speech, you must toe the line with social credit scores and the like. Don't come crying to me. Enjoy your slavery. You would have done it to yourself. Our job is not to be cheerleaders for any president, vice president, member of Congress, the Senate, city council, state representative, state senator. Our job is not to be cheerleaders. Our job is to be guardians. Our job is to be guardians of the republic. Our job is to be vigilant and to call balls and strikes. It's our republic. It's not theirs. They are mere servants. They are mere representatives. They are mere agents. This is the issue of agency in our U.S. Constitution. They are our agents. And when our agents are laying the foundation for something that's going to be a tyrannical digital system in a few years, if this goes through, then we must speak up before it happens. So to all the people that are not intellectually advanced enough, discerning enough to understand what it is we're doing here, then there's no hope for you. There is no hope for you. You have become part of the, I would say, brainwashed segment of society. Yes, Trump derangement syndrome on the left and the right. Patrick Wood, he wrote the book, The Final Betrayal. And I was up till very late reading it last night. Patrick, Peter Thiel, who doesn't like democracy or doesn't like the idea of freedom and democracy as being compatible, in 2009 quote I gave, he basically mentored JD Vance, bankrolled him, employed him and bankrolled him, you write, with $15 million for his 2022 Senate campaign. And the question is, who went to Donald Trump? And it looks like I'm frozen on the screen, Logan. Who went to Donald Trump and begged him to add JD Vance to the ticket? Was that Don Jr. and Tucker Carlson, I hear? Is that true?
It was, and Peter Thiel was there as well. I'm sure there's maybe others. Mark Andreessen, I think, was at the table as well.
So no wonder, I guess, JD gets a little touchy.
He should.
When Tucker's son gets brought up, because apparently Tucker helped him get the job as VP, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does he share Tucker's worldview?
Exactly. You have to understand that Peter Thiel was a guy that not just funded the JD Vance, but he mentored him in everything that they met in college. And JD Vance just took, he said he was changed by a speech he heard Peter Thiel give when he was in law school. And it touched his life. He said that openly. Then
now,
he went
Peter
to work
Thiel's a homosexual, is that right?
That's right.
So he's touched by a homosexual. that sounded wrong. Touched emotionally, intellectually.
Yes.
He, of course, is busy all the time talking about the Antichrist, Peter Thiel. He's an odd character. And you write that Thiel's rules are tools for dismantling. This is page 12 of your book. Thiel's rules are for dismantling the very freedoms MAGA sought to restore, replacing them with a sovereign corporation where power is monopolized by a few. Explain that, please.
When we went to analyze Peter Thiel's mind, it was a dark place to go, I have to say. We came up with the idea to create a set of rules that he might have thought up in the first place to guide his strategy forward. We did that based on the fact that he expressed in all of his career that he always had an agenda. He always had rules, if you will, on how to get there. He didn't say them exactly like we say them here. And we might even be wrong about a couple of things. However, the first rule that we came up with is make your own rules. He expressed this in so many ways along in his career. You make your own rules. You don't go by the competition's rules. You make your own. Number one. Number two, all these rules must be hidden from the public. This is, we see Peter Thiel engaging in secret meetings, secret societies for the last 25 years. They were always kept hidden.
What kind of secret societies are you talking about?
Well, one was recently discovered. It's called Rockbridge. It was started in, I can't remember exactly when it was, but several years ago. And I don't think this is in the book, but that was one that he met with high positioned public servants to discuss his agenda with technocratic things like the concept of RAGE, or retire all government employees.
Now that's an acronym, RAGE, retire all government employees. Which by the way, to libertarians or to conservatives may sound like, that's a great idea. We have way too many of them. But what are you going to replace them with? You're going to, as I said in my monologue, you're going to replace them with a computer system that you are not going to be able to try to persuade to do something based on common sense and the rule of law, because the computer is going to do whatever it's told to do, regardless of what the rule of law or constitution says.
Exactly. So rule number 3 was motives must be disguised. That kind of makes sense. If you were a conspirator and you wanted to pull the wool over somebody's eyes, you have to disguise yourself. Rule number 4, redefine the language. He's changed he's flip-flopped the English language, if you will, to redefine basic concepts. You talk about the Antichrist, for instance. I'm convinced he's not talking our language at that point.
Libertarian, by the way, I don't think he means what most people think when they think libertarian. He means something completely different. He's just hiding behind that term, which, by the way, ironically, that's what I wrote about in my Marxianity book in 2018. I said, be careful of these guys promoting libertarianism. A lot of them are not promoting that at all. They're promoting a communitarianism, big government and big business merging together, which is really what he's doing. And then you add in the technical part of it with computers.
Exactly. Rule 5, insert a trusted mole in whatever organization you're going after. Well, all of a sudden, JD Vance shows up on the scene. That's his trusted mole, if you will.
You write, strategic infiltration is Thiel's hallmark. He plants loyalists to advance his agenda covertly. JD Vance, hired by Thiel in 2017 and funded for his political ascent, now serves as vice president, pushing policies like deregulating AI and gutting federal agencies, direct echoes of Thiel's views. That's on page 16. You also write back on page 13, while publicly championing libertarian ideals, Thiel has covertly funded anti-democratic thinkers like Curtis Yarvin. Now, we've talked about Curtis Yarvin before. Give us the Cliff Note version again on him.
He's the guy that came up with the popular movement called Dark Enlightenment.
Oh, yeah.
Peter Thiel refers to Yarvin as his Howse philosopher. Go figure. But Peter Thiel was instrumental in shaping Yarvin's career in the first place, financially, as well as probably mentorship as well. So when somebody like Curtis Yarvin is held up as being somebody influential in Peter Thiel's thinking, like he's his Howse philosopher, you have to pay attention to what he's talking about.
Well, particularly when you write on page 59 of your book, Yarvin has proposed a, quote, humane alternative to genocide, end quote.
Yeah.
For removing, quote, undesirable elements, end quote, from society without moral stigma, virtualizing them in permanent solitary confinement, equipped with immersive virtual reality to simulate a fulfilling life, end quote. Now, that sounds like something out of a sci-fi. So basically, they put you to sleep, put you in some kind of pod or something, put you to sleep, hook you up to computers, and give you the idea of a simulated life of pleasure, but you're really taking the undesirables and you're just warehousing them as a humane alternative to genocide, correct?
Until they die, which they will die quickly if they're put in that condition. Exactly. This is genocide for sure.
Now, what's the connection between Yarvin and JD Vance?
JD Vance has not talked not a lot about Yarvin, because if he did, it would destroy his career. He's very careful to toe the patriotic line, if you will. Mm-hmm. So he doesn't talk a lot about Peter Thiel. He gets offended if you say, "Well, you're Thiel's guy, right?" He's going to get really upset.
So this might be one of the reasons why JD Vance's office were apparently too chicken to let us interview them, because they knew I was tied to you, producing your show with Logan, and might ask too many questions.
You got that right.
If JD's not a chicken, then he's more than welcome to come on the broadcast. And we will obviously be respectful as the vice president, respect the audience. But we're going to ask tough questions, and we'll do it live so it can't be edited. And he's happy to answer them. But look, it's his job to convince us, not our job to convince him. He's the VP who apparently has eyes on the White House, the Oval Office. But he's hanging out with some very disturbing individuals, in my opinion, from their worldview. We come back. I got more. Don't go away. Where else are you going to hear this, folks?
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage, and now, real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
You're watching Worldview Tube, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon Howse.
All right, let's go to a clip by Charlie Kirk. Do we know when this was? When this was by Charlie? When Charlie said this? Does anybody know? Okay, here's Charlie Kirk. Listen to this, folks.
So, in order to remedy...
Now, this is Yarvin, right? Yarvin? Is that who this is? Curtis Yarvin?
Yes.
Okay, for those who can't see, this guy, he looks like Tiny Tim from the 1970s. I'm waiting for him to pull his ukulele out and sing Tiptoe Through the Tulips. Because that's exactly what he looks like. He looks like Tiny Tim, who I met, by the way. I walked into a studio in St. Paul one day, and sitting in a chair was Tiny Tim, who was not tiny, by the way. He's a pretty tall individual. That was an interesting conversation. But anyway, I digress. But this is the lookalike of Tiny Tim, Curtis Yarvin, by the way. Here we go.
So, in order to remedy this sort of great imbalance, or this usurpation of the legislative and judicial branches over the executive branch, which has become the democratic branch with a small d, and thus has been rendered utterly toothless in the sense that the president himself has power over the government. The only remedy for this wrong is to put the president entirely in charge of the government. And that essentially means that the executive branch, far from being checked and balanced in a way that does not work and has left the executive branch not checked and balanced, but simply hogtied and held hostage, is to render the executive branch completely unilateral. And when I talk about...
Wow. I mean, that's great for the next guy who comes into power. You're right. You know, let's do that and then hand the reins over to Gavin Newsom. How's that going to work out, right? Or AOC, and don't think she can't. How did Charlie respond to that? Does anybody know?
He pushed back a little bit.
Was
honestly.
Charlie onto this? Was he starting to figure out that these guys are dangerous?
It could be. That's a possibility. We'll never know for sure.
Because I think, in my opinion, they're dangerous, and any of the guys I'm talking about, they're all welcome to come on my broadcast, okay? I'm not interested in slandering you or anything else. I'm just presenting facts. If I have something wrong, feel free to call, text, email, get through. We'll gladly have you on the program live to share your views, okay? I'm not going to have a kumbaya with you, but I'm happy to do the typical interview that I do with a lot of people. And you can state your case, and I can ask you to explain it and tell you why I agree or don't agree, depending on what it is you're saying. This is an interesting character. I mean, they really want to turn the presidency into a monarchy. Do I have that right? You
do. That's exactly right. I remember in our revolution in 1776, didn't we get rid of a monarch at that point? Didn't we have a fill of a monarchy?
How are members of Congress handling this? Because they're going to be done away with, right? I mean, they're not going to be followed. Yes. They'll just be empty suits, right?
How many years have I been saying this, that the political class in America, they don't have a clue that they're all going to be thrown under the bus if technocrats take control. Mm-hmm. And they just don't see this coming at all.
And it's all being implemented with all these guys, Larry Ellison, Thiel, all their companies have contracts, big-time contracts now with this government, this administration, through this administration, correct?
Yes, indeed.
So you keep saying in this book over and over, and thank you again for writing it, and it's called Final Betrayal, available at technocracy.news or on Amazon. You keep saying MAGA is being betrayed. I mean, that's the name of the book, Final Betrayal. You're saying MAGA is being betrayed. Does Donald Trump even understand this? If I were to have a conversation with him, or you were to have a conversation with him, would he look at us like a calf looking at a new gate? Would he I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't understand what you're talking about.
I think he understands perfectly well.
Really?
And that's my opinion. I really do.
And why would he
may have
this?
another?
Why?
He may have another agenda on top of technocracy, but he's fully supportive of what he's created.
Now, some of my friends believe that he is so angry and bitter with how he was treated that this is basically revenge. if you were going to bring revenge to the political class, the courts, the judges, your political enemies, or Republicans that like Lindsey Graham, who threw him under the bus. I mean, Lindsey Graham, didn't he right after January 6th basically say, I'm done with Trump, I'm done with these guys? And then yet last weekend we saw a golf tournament with Trump and Lindsey Graham. It was like, this guy was not one of your friends, but he has a habit of bringing all these people that don't like him around him and giving them, power or campaigning for them. But some have said maybe this is Donald Trump's way of bringing a curse on all of them. Is he going to put in a system that just basically eliminates them politically? They have no more clout, more power. Is it about revenge?
I don't see it that way. I know some people do. There's so many theories why Trump acts the way he acts, but I'm trying to create a unified theory.
Okay.
That explains it all.
And what is that?
Well, it says he's complicit with technocracy, for one thing. And financially, we see him in bed with the Middle East, all these countries in the Middle East, Qatar,
and as we're talking
Saudi
today,
Arabia.
You have the royal prince, the Saudi prince, in the Oval Office, which we'll get to tonight. Do you think this has been sold to him because this is the only way to save the country that's financially collapsing, so we need to tokenize everything? Is this just a pragmatic economic solution to what is an inevitable end to the country?
That's definitely part of it. And you understand how compatible that the Middle Eastern philosophy of debt-based, or not, they're against a debt-based economic system. When you understand their asset-based economic system, this is really appealing to Trump and his cohorts at this point. That's one reason you see all this money being imported from the Middle East into our country. I think we're going to see possibly a complete economic flip over into an asset-based system based on tokenization.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see that the removal of debt from society altogether, it'll take a few years to mop it up, but I could see going forward that the debt-based system is going to be going away and an asset-based system will replace it. That puts us on a par then with Islamic banking and Sharia banking, maybe without Sharia law, but nevertheless they're going to be compatible, where everything can be tokenized and shared amongst all the players.
All right, now let's go to this screenshot here. I'll describe it. It is somebody's interviewing Yarvin, and behind him, I guess the left and the right of British and American politics came to a head as we hear Campbell push Yarvin on his beliefs about racial justice and gender equality within the White House. And the picture here is behind, they're sitting in front of a screen. Yarvin is sitting on a screen being interviewed by this guy. And on the screen, the philosopher behind JD Vance.
Mm-hmm.
What do you know about this interview?
I haven't seen it, honestly. I want to see it. It's obvious to me that he really is the philosopher behind JD Vance. JD Vance is not going to talk about it openly because it would destroy his career.
Yeah.
If anybody knew what he really believed, they said they would throw him out immediately. They're not going to do that. I think it would be very touchy.
You write on page 15 of your book, reframing, quote, democracy as inefficiency, proposing monarchy or CEO rule as efficient alternatives in influencing Vance's calls to seize the administrative state for our purposes. This is what he said. Fire every single mid-level bureaucrat, every civil servant in the administrative state, replace them with our people, and win the court and win the courts, because you will get taken to court. And then when the courts stop you, say the Chief Justice has made his ruling, now let him enforce it, end quote. That was in 2021. The president basically is a monarch or CEO. Now, if they pitched that to Donald Trump, that would be very appealing to him, because a guy that spent his whole life as a CEO, I'm sure he gets tired saying "Mother, may I" and asking the courts and these dumb rulings by these whacked out judges. You could see where their liberalism has shoved the extremism on the left could have shoved Donald Trump to the extremism of the right and their technocracy.
Exactly. He's acting this way already, I think. I don't say that as a charge necessarily, but he's acting more and more as a CEO than a president. He's saying things that are just out of character for a president.
You mean like today telling a reporter, be quiet, piggy. That's going viral. He called some little reporter gal piggy. I'm like, what? On Air Force One. Have you seen that video today?
I know. Who on earth would think that that's appropriate language for president? I'm sorry, it isn't.
Wagged his finger at her. Quiet, piggy. Like, what? I have no idea what the lady looks like. It doesn't really matter. I'm like, that's the president talking that way?
Crazy, yeah. So he's acting, and anyway, he's acting more and more like a CEO rather than a president at this point. And I think this certainly plays to him. And when somebody like Yarvin is just saying it outright, well, we need a monarch in America. You could see Trump saying, "Choose me. Here I am. Choose me.
He's already said something about king. Hasn't he joked about being the king of the world or something? Make me the king of the world or something like that, right? He joked about that.
I know. He's made some strange comments over the years about how he would rule the world if he could. Tongue in cheek, of course, but you have to ask now: is that really what he's thinking? Maybe so.
Well, let's open the phone lines. I think we're going to have to spend 2 days with you to get through this because we're just kind of, this is a lot here. But let's open the phone lines for your thoughts, guys. Look, we're just the messengers, okay? We're just bringing you what's going on. It's all footnoted and documented. 1-800-347-9829. What does your discernment tell you, listening friends? What does your spirit tell you? I have told you guys that I want President Trump to succeed. But shortly after he came into office, within a couple months of him coming into office, when I would see him on television and listen to him, there are times I certainly laughed and thought, that's really funny. That's pretty, I agree with that. But then the majority of the time, though, when I would see him on TV, I would get this feeling in my gut or in my spirit that was like very, very cautious, very concerned, like, I don't know. It was like something in my spirit kept telling me, be careful with this guy. I want to like him. I want him to succeed. But there was something when I would hear him at times and listen to him at times, like my spirit just didn't set well. And it doesn't have to be that he was saying or doing anything at that moment, but there's something that's changed. I'd like to know if the audience feels that in your spirit. And what I'm talking about is your discernment. Are there some red flags going up that cause you to say, I don't know, I don't understand all of this, but something's different in my spirit. I'm troubled in my spirit. I don't know how else to put it in the human language other than that. And I don't think I've ever voiced that to this audience. I've told you guys there are things I think and believe and know, but I don't share some of it because I don't know how it would go over. 1-800-347-9829. 1-800-347-9829. There's so much here in this book, The Final Betrayal by Patrick Wood on Amazon. We'll be right back with your calls. Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's
825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
1-800-347-9829, 1-800-347-9829. We have a clip where Logan has just found a clip where JD Vance is talking about Yarvin. We've screened this for language, Logan. All right, so we're all going to hear it for the first time. Here we go.
There are two different ideas here, right? So one is like, there's this guy Curtis Yarvin who's written about some of these things, and so one is to basically accept that this entire thing is going to fall in on itself, right? And so the task of conservatives right now is to preserve as much as can be preserved, and then when the inevitable collapse of the country comes, ensure that conservatives are able to sort of help build back the country in a way that's actually better, not Joe Biden's Build Back Better, but actually some sort of reconstruction of the country.
Mm-hmm. Which I have to ask, we're going to go to the phone lines real quick. How many of them are aligned up with the Build Back Better of the United Nations? How tuned in are they, Patrick? Very quickly, because the phone lines are lighting up. How much are they tied in to the goals of the UN and Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, these guys?
And we have to remember that whole agenda at the United Nations was crafted in the first place by members of the Trilateral Commission that started in 1973 with David Rockefeller and Zbigniew Brzezinski. They fed that whole doctrine to the United Nations, and they've been grooming the United Nations with this doctrine ever since.
And is this in the Yarvin and the Thiel camp too?
Well, you can't put him exactly in the same camp, but certainly the other people. Well, for instance, Alex Karp and Peter Thiel both are members of the steering committee of the Bilderberg Group. Go figure.
And the Bilderberg Group would be all for Agenda 21, Agenda 2030.
Totally.
Okay, let's go to the phone lines. Faye in Florida, line 1. Faye, thank you for calling in, Faye.
Hi, it's been a long time. I'm so grateful for your broadcast, Brannon Howse. It's Faye in Florida. I love your Bible shows, and I've been reading the Bible regularly and trying to stay to the text. But thank you. But about President Trump's maneuvers, I'm learning so much about the military. I'm learning so much about the banking industry. I've done a lot of things in my lifetime. But what I am curious about is your viewpoint on any of these maneuvers being of a military engineer. It's a global operation. I have come to believe that. My father was a coder for supercomputers in the 60s. We had no idea. We moved every 2 years. He worked for IBM, the Commerce Department, Control Data. So a lot of this technology has been around for years, and I think there's a lot of possibility that your show is foretelling that we're about to be revealed on a lot of technology that we didn't know existed. There's a fight for control over it, and I do believe that President Trump is the person to oversee the bankruptcy of the United States of America. I mean, it's so broad and big, but I think I love your taking things literally, but I think there's some operations. He literally took the prince along the hallway with all the portraits today. See if you can find that.
Oh,
and
I saw it.
They stood in front of Roosevelt for a long time, and then he stood in front of the auto pen for a few minutes and laughed. So I think he's trying to explain to the world leaders, you're on board with us. We're going to do this the right way. And I think some of the young people that have been doing this for a long time, they're part of it. And if it's going to be controllable, that's the question.
All right. Great call. Thank you for your kind encouragement today, Faye.
Oh, I really need to hear from you all the time. So
thank you, Faye. Quick answer, because I want to get to Carol in Arizona and Brian in Minnesota. Quick answer, Patrick.
I can't answer that, I don't think. It is what it is, what's going on today. And the betrayal part of this is, This is not just a case of broken promises. We've always dealt with that, and every politician says stuff they can't keep once he gets elected, right? This is not that at all.
Is the military? Is this a military operation or not?
The military is definitely involved in this, and not because they're driving the whole process, but they're there in a supportive role for technocracy. In other words, the military has been infiltrated by technocrats top to bottom, and we see them colluding, if you will, with other branches of technocracy.
Let's go to Carol in Arizona, line 4. Hi, Carol. Hi, Carol.
Hi.
Go right
Yes.
ahead. Yes.
Yes. I was telling you, I know who Trump is. Trump is the last Trump. His name tells it all. And people better wake up, because we are, as it says, look up, because your time is here. The 2 witnesses are gone. They have fled from Judea. They have celebrated in Judea. All of this these prophecies are happening right in front of our face.
Thank you, Carol. I'm going to run just because I'm running out of time. Brian in Minnesota, line 2. Hi, Brian. Hi, Brian, line 2.
Yeah, thank you for talking about this subject, because that AI stuff is really, Trump is really pushing that, and that makes me really nervous, to be honest with you. You know, and then they're building all these data centers all over the place, and they're building them here in Minnesota, you know. And, yeah, he isn't no Reagan, I can tell you that. I liked Ronald Reagan a lot, but I don't know how they can compare Trump to Reagan, but, you know, so anyhow, thank you,
Brian.
Sir, for
Thank
doing
you.
what you're doing.
Thank you, sir. Be safe. Let me go to page 66 as we get ready to wrap. You write, Curtis Yarvin, Nick Land, and the neo-reactionary movement represents a profound threat to the American self-governance experiment. Their philosophies, anti-democratic and technocratic, have infiltrated the halls of power, betraying the MAGA movement's promises of freedom and restoration. And we see it in the swift changes post-inauguration. These ideas are not abstract. They are engine driving the destruction of our constitutional republic. This darkness spreads through AI, cryptocurrency, and beyond. We urge readers to recognize the treason before it's too late, end quote. Those are strong words, I know, but I want to deal with that when we come back tomorrow in chapter 6, the death of capitalism. Because these guys are no fans of capitalism from what I'm reading in your book. And
exactly right.
We're going to deal with it. It's available at Amazon. It's called The Final Betrayal, a cautionary tale, how technocracy destroyed America. Folks, get the book, read it. It's documented. And then say, is he right? Is he wrong? The facts are here. Stay tuned for Crosstalk. Take care. And we're back with WROS out of Jacksonville, Florida, and you here on Worldview Tube. What kind of response are you getting from this book? What kind of pushback? What kind of encouragement, thankfulness, or even hate are you getting?
No hate yet. I expect there will be at some point. But at this point, the people who have read the book, like yourself, they just go, wow, we had no idea what this was going on. We were very careful to document everything.
Oh, yes. There's tons and tons of documentation.
In some cases, we have more footnotes than text.
That's right. That's exactly right. I was shocked. I was like, wow, that's several pages of just footnotes behind each chapter.
I know. So, you know, we were very intentional to only put in what we could document very carefully so people can see for themselves. I know nobody's going to go through all these footnotes, but nevertheless, if a researcher wants to do a deep dive, they can do it. But the main point of this whole exercise was, in the first place, was to describe a betrayal as not just a series of broken promises. A betrayal is something altogether different. And when you consider the trust that's broken, like in a marriage, when you discover your spouse has been sleeping with somebody else or whatever, you know, they've They've betrayed your trust at that point. You can't go back to a normal relationship again unless you deal with it maybe in a biblical way. But betrayal is altogether different. And this is what happened in America. We had no idea. Nobody had any idea who Curtis Yarvin was before November 2, 2024. Nobody knew who this guy was. And they didn't know what they were proposing with Doge, for instance, to come in and capture all the data and the government and hand it over to Palantir. Nobody had a clue that was what was going on. But now we see what happened in these preceding or the succeeding months. Now, 12 months on, it's a different story.
Do you believe that some people like Laura Ingraham and others are catching on to this? I'm going to hope and pray that Charlie was catching on to it. But do you think Laura Ingraham, because I noticed last week and I played the clips and I talked about on the air here, she seemed to be mocking him in some of the interviews. Hey, are these from Home Depot, spray painted gold? Really? They're not. And he's like, no, they're not from Home Depot. And she's like, are you sure they're not from Home Depot? I mean, it was like she was mocking him, right? And then she pushed back on him several times about 600,000 CHICOM students we need in here to prop up universities. She's like, why not let them collapse? No, you can't do that. Really? I don't think so. She was really being argumentative. Is she figured out this is not the same guy and she's ticked? Was she starting to show her hand?
I sensed that.
Yeah, I did too.
I would love to have an offline conversation with her at this point, but it probably will never happen. I don't know her at all, but she may be waking up to something's wrong, and maybe she's feeling betrayed. I see the word betrayed used more and more in the popular media now. And people are using that word, not because I said it in the first place, but just on their own. They're saying, well, this is not just broken promises. We've been betrayed. And maybe she's picking up on this. I think other people will as well at some point. Hopefully they're going to read our book and they'll see the whole picture. And I think it'll shock people.
What are you making of those who are putting out that the FCC is doing an alarming power grab and are, moving us toward a digital dystopia? And what do you make of this?
You're going to see the biggest attack on free speech in our constitutional history. It's going to be something to behold as we get clamped down. What the narratives are going to be erased. We're going to be erased probably at some point.
I'm on 74 terrestrial stations, FCC terrestrial stations. You're saying I am going to have to limit it to just Bible teaching and nothing else probably, right?
Well, I'll put it this way. The technocrats who are in charge right now, they have no interest in free speech at all. They have no interest in the First Amendment. And they will take measures and time to silence all free speech altogether.
I've said to my team several times, well, the one thing we have going for us is I can just teach the Bible. Will they let me do that? If I say, okay, I'm not going to talk politics and go after you guys, I'll just teach the Bible. Will they let me do that?
You'd hope, but I wouldn't bet on it.
But I should have a little bit longer than the average political pundit, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Possibly. All right, the final betrayal. We got more tomorrow. Very big topic, very concerning. MAGA betrayed. That's what he's saying. He's warning you. He brings the receipts. Question is, are people listening or will they complain about it after the fact? The time to act is now, to be informed. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting.